Hey guys, just wanted to hop on here really fast and talk to you about some upcoming classes this weekend, as well as just some life stuff and relationship stuff and that I think a lot of people are struggling with. So this morning, just going over some classes. We're throwing on a handgun workshop this weekend on Saturday morning, trying to fill some spots. So we're going to work on things like cadence and throttle control and marksmanship, the normal stuff that guys need to work on. Saturday night here, we're going to have our Christian men's leadership workshop. So anybody's welcome. It's free. Come hang out with the guys and let iron sharpen iron. What I really want to talk to you guys about is Sunday. Sunday morning is Land Nav 1, and that's one of those classes that a lot of people don't sign up for that I think is absolutely critical for every responsible citizen to learn. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the last class is beginner handgun. If you guys are new to handguns, come check us out, beginner handgun. So I want to talk about Land Nav. So there's many reasons why Land Nav class is so important. And we've had students that have used it in the past in real world scenarios. And I think that it's often forgotten about because we're so used to GPS and you know, smartphones and always having that there, and people are going, okay, why do I need it? Well, right out of the gate, let me just explain something. China owns almost all of the GPS technology and has bought into all of these GPS companies and satellite systems. They also are completing their low Earth orbit space station, which is going to have anti-satellite capabilities. Their primary goal, we've intercepted tons of communication between them. The primary goal is going to be first and foremost to disrupt GPS. So I know what you're thinking. All right, so I know how to get home from my work. I'm good, right? I don't use GPS that often. So let me explain. Yes, GPS is great, and yes, you might know how to get home from work and go home. You say, well, I don't really travel a lot, and okay, I hear you. But what if, let's just take, for instance, what if you have to take alternate routes home? There are roads that are closed. You have a GPS style system attack combined with things like power outages, or I'm going to take it some steps further. More realistic. Let's talk natural disasters. How many people fleeing Katrina got lost? Cell phones were going down because of towers, and they need to try to find escape routes. And there's all kinds of things going on there where people in natural disasters are just completely scrambling, and it's chaos. And what I don't want you guys to do is end up in a place of that chaos, or you have your kids that are, you know, stuck at school, natural disaster hits, or tornadoes or hurricanes or floods or anything could happen. So ultimately it just goes back to being prepared and being responsible with preparation. It's even things like hunting, where if I'm going to a stand right on 40 acres of property, then I'm going to know where my truck is in relation to some terrain associations. I'm going to know where my truck is parked. Then I'm going to get a pace count and a cardinal direction, or a direction. So I might be going like from 260 degrees from my truck, and then my pace count 141 meters. Then I'm going to let someone know. So let's say that I fall out of a tree stand, something happens, there's a medical emergency. I think I'm suffering from cardiac arrest. I actually had a student who got into an anthill, middle of nowhere, on this power line, thoroughfare, and he got bitten by fire ants. Didn't even really notice, However, what he found out is he is allergic to fire ants and went into anaphylactic shock. And so there's little things where we need to communicate with, let's say, 911 or rescuers to say, hey, I think I'm having a cardiac arrest episode. I'm stuck in a tree stand, or hey, I fell off a tree stand, broke my leg, or I slipped down an embankment looking for a deer. When I look for a deer, if it takes off, or help students look for a deer, then I'll make sure I pull out compass. I set a box method, so we start going through this systematically, so we're not just wandering around the woods. We know how to get back to the deer stand. And so there's little things, guys, that you might miss that can be applied by taking Land Nav outside of disasters to everyday life. You go to your family with Disney World, right? You have directions. You have a panic azimuth set. You have panic directions set. With your Land nav 1 skills, you're going to learn how to use a map and read a map and use a compass and learn pace count and get your pace beads and learn things like terrain drift and terrain association and planes adrift and right hand or left hand biases, reading maps, route planning, things like that is key. Even things like fleeing from Hurricane Katrina, route planning is going to be key. We're going to look at certain things on the map. You're also going to learn how to navigate around objects. So you come up to a pond and you go, man, I can't swim that, or a river. So how do I box around that and still get right back to my same point? You guys are going to put those into practice, so deer took off through the woods, it ran from you, crossed a creek or crossed a briar thicket, so you don't want to go. You want to try to avoid those briar thickets, so you box around it, stay on that natural plane. So you can lose a deer trail, right? We've all done that before, where we'll take a right, avoid a gully or something we can't cross, or a briar thicket, a deer ran through it, and then we come back, we're like, wait, where does the blood trail on the backside? So you're going to learn how to box that, right? So all my hunters, all my dads, my leadership of families, this is all key, whether it's threats from China or hunting or practical applications. You guys really should, or hiking, for instance, you're going hiking, or you're training, a lot of guys are like preparedness groups. So, okay, if I leave out of my home base on my preparedness group and I want to go forage or scavenge, right, and I come across some wild hawthorn that we need for medicinal tinctures, man, I've already set a direction. I'm in at 241 degrees, 450 meters, and I've got my pace beads and I'm counting, so that way I can mark, hey, 450 degrees, I don't have anything to collect hawthorn with, right? So we can send another group out later to collect it. There's little things that are going to matter, either from a preparedness side or going to your family at Disney World or hiking or, natural disasters. There's all kinds of reasons to take land nav. It's so key. And it's funny, I was sitting here thinking about land nav. We got our Christian Men's Leadership Conference coming up, but I was thinking about land nav and all these valuable tools. And, I was just thinking from a Christian standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, man, a man without a compass or a man without direction, a man without a map, he's going to go nowhere. And so it's so key for us. So, for us, our map is the Word and our compass is God. And so I think that so many of us have completely missed the mark. We have no mission, task, goal, objective, and we've missed it. We look at where we wanted to be, and we're just so far in the woods and the thick of things, and we don't know how to get out. I've certainly been there where, I wanted a marriage and a family, and I wanted to be happy, healthy, whole. And you're looking at, 20, 27, 28 years old, and you're going, man, I've missed this. I am nowhere close to where I want to be. I've missed this mark. For us, I talk to people all the time where it's, I need this, or I need this to validate me, or I've got fear, or I'm in survivor mode, not thriving, or my relationships are failing. And there's all times where we have missed the mark, where we are broken or we're struggling. We've just missed it, where there's chaos. And in chaos, especially men, we don't do well. Think about trying to follow your GPS when you're lost. What happens? The radio gets turned down, the windows get rolled up. Don't talk to me. The AC gets turned off, or it's that reaction versus that response. We don't want to react. We want to respond. And so, we look around and we judge where other people are. And we say, man, I want to be there, but how do we get there? Or we look around in the world and we say, man, I'm lost. And it's never good to be lost in a land nav class, right? Or there's a react to contact. Things in life happens. In land nav 2, what we'll do is we'll have you guys on a trail, and one of the instructors will ambush you, and we'll fire force on force rounds at you, and everybody scatters. Right. So then we finally get everybody back together, in some gully somewhere where they're taking cover, and they go, all right, how do we get back on track? We teach you guys how to get back on track. What that takes, though, is it takes cognizance. It takes awareness. Don't wait to get shot at to then look at your compass and see where you're at, and to look at your pace speeds and see where you're at, and to terrain associate and see where you're at. But we miss it. Right, so we get blindsided, we get ambushed, things in life happens, And for us, it comes back to, hey, get back to your roots, right? Where you really need to get back to those roots. But if you haven't built those roots, you go, man, I'm just back in the weeds. And so how do you get rid of weeds? Yeah, why there are no weeds growing around these big trees out here in the yards? Because the roots are deep. So, we need to get back to those roots in life. It looks like, if it looks like it's going to get bad, we have options. We can go back, we can stand still and do nothing, or we can predict that and we can see if it's avoidable, and so how would he predict it? Man, in LandNav, you're going to learn, let's look at maps. Let's learn to train associate. Let's look at what's coming up. Let's look at that predictable path and let's plan accordingly. If there's something that we, a briar thicket or a creek, how do we avoid it? Don't come up to the middle and be like, now I got to wade through this and you drowned. How can I avoid this? Start boxing early, do the right thing sooner. And so we really want to dive in those topics in LandNav. But last thing I want to talk about is, man, just defining yourself based on where you are. And don't define yourself based on your brokenness or your destruction or where you're at. Man, set a new point to start from. Get back on track. Where truth, if you look at what it comes down to, is getting back to truth. And in life there's darkness, and nighttime LandNav is no fun for anybody, and we miss it, and we're lost, and we need that light source. We need that map. We need that compass. We need that guiding truth. We need the way, the truth, and the life, right? It's what we need. And so truth, by definition, is the very presence of God, right, in your predicament, in your daily walk, right? And so what it is that continuous awareness of the right choices, of good discernment, of those unseen realities that are around us, and how we interpret life and interpret those relationships and relate to others and relate to God and relate to the world around us. Truth is ultimately God being your compass, right? And so we don't always have truth. We miss the mark, but that compass being right there with us, if you are just dead reckoning, doing a body hold, and it's laid out in front of you, and every step I take has that compass sitting right there. I know, I'm assured, right? But then what happens? We shoot an azimuth, we go, okay, I'm gonna go for that tree over there, and we put our compass away and we start walking. Well, what are some things that can impact us, right? Terrain drift. You're gonna learn about that in LandNav, where a downward slope is gonna naturally pull you more downhill. How many times do we have that in life where, man, we start to go downhill, and what happens? We just start to tank, and we start to drift more downhill. Things like right-hand bias. Every time we come up to a tree or an object, we, as right-handed people, tend to go right-handed. The problem is every small little step right, if we go through the woods and we pass 200 trees, and each step is a yard, we're 200 yards off our objective, where every little wrong step that we don't account for adds up, right? Where small deviations certainly do matter, or we pull our nods down to look, or we hold our compass too close to our body armor, it's got metal in it, or we put it on a metal table. Well, metal and compasses don't mix. And so what we do is we try to mix things of this world and things around us with that compass. And what happens is it throws that compass off ever so slightly, where it takes that daily step with that compass laid out. He goes before us. And it takes that transforming nature, that trust, right? It takes us holding that out and following that plan and that path. It takes, knowing those boundaries, knowing God's word. It takes that repentance, that getting back on track. If you do deviate a little bit, don't keep going down that hill and drifting downhill. Get back to it. Don't let your one regret lead you down a path of deeper regret, or your one mistake lead you down a path of more mistakes. What that means, though, is we have to be aware of it. We have to be conscious. It has to be shown in the light. It has to be in alignment with the word. And so, man, just in general, you want to, get yourself there, when, especially for me, when the paths of my youth, it was just heedless steps, right? But his hand is so faithful to guide us back on track, to be that compass, to bring us back to a state up and out where he goes before us, and his way is always right. and you cannot go wrong on his path if he is the goal. You know, that's part of that Christian walk, right? You have to have that compass. So my challenge for you guys, if you are lost or broken or struggling, man, come jump in that Christian conference, 5:30 here. Shoot us a message. We'll get you the address. But really, let's focus on those land nav skills, where we need to learn the physical applications of land nav, but then we also need the map being the word and the compass being God to really bring us to the goal that we want. Don't be just walk around with no task, mission, goal, objective, or without compass or direction. That's how we miss the mark. That's how we end up so far deep in darkness and in the woods. We don't find a way out. So if you are broken or struggling, man, join us this weekend. Learn those practical land nav skills. Think about how those apply to your life in the physical world, but let's also think about how those apply to your mind, body, soul. Be safe out there.